All right. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Perspective Matters, this week in behavioral healthcare. I'm your host, Glenn Hadley with Southworth Associates, and I want to thank you guys for joining us today. We're really glad that y'all are here. So for those of y'all that are new to the show, I want to let you know a little bit about it. On this show, we address topics in behavioral healthcare ranging from clinical, operational, business development, even some public policy. And our goal is to be a resource for the field and a platform to bring mentors to those out there on the front lines. I do want to take a moment and I would like to thank our sponsors, Southworth Associates and Dreamscape Marketing. Really, they allow us to put on the show every week. And I get this a lot of times. People ask me, like, what does Southworth Associates actually do? And so just to kind of throw it out there, the Southworth Associates, we actually do interventions on the front end of treatment, and then we do professional monitoring on the back end of treatment. So we're kind of like the before and after. And so if you have a loved one or a patient that's in need of either interventions or professional monitoring, please give us a shout here at Southworth Associates. We'd love to talk to you about that. Also, we're other partners in this are Dreamscape Marketing, and for all of your marketing needs, especially in the field of behavioral healthcare, you can reach out to those guys. They do phenomenal work. All right. And so another thing before we get started in this, I do want to make mention that we're running out of time. We actually have Perspectives, A Time for Change, our virtual conference that we put on a few weeks ago, and it's live this whole month, the whole month of November. And so if you're still looking to get your CEUs, your CMEs for 2020, you can still go to perspectives@timeforchange.com, and you can register and watch the presentations for credit, which is pretty cool. It's kind of this new world of virtual that is just because the conference ends doesn't mean that the conference ends. So definitely go check that out. All right. Now, so I'm going to go ahead and I want to get into our guests today. So our guests in the show are Nicole Gilbertson and Megan Reinhardt. I want to tell you guys a little bit about them. So Megan is the CEO PI for a current fast track grant awarded by the National Institutes of Health for RAE, which is Realize, Analyze, and Engage, a digital biomarker-based detection and intervention system for stress and craving during recovery from substance abuse disorders. She's held various executive positions in publicly traded, startup, and private sectors. Most recently as vice president for a clinical laboratory based in Charlotte, North Carolina, where she was responsible for overseeing operations for 2 clinical laboratory locations, payer contractor, and M&A activities. So really glad to have Megan join us today. And then also we have Nicole, who has 18 years of experience building and growing and founding clinical laboratories, specifically in addiction medicine. Prior to RAE, she served as the Western U.S. Director of Sales for Alair Toxicology and a global leading $600 million toxicology organization recently acquired by Abbott. She has extensive relationships with key industry leaders and corporate contacts in the addiction field. She's a native of Washington, and she graduated cum laude from Washington State University with a BA in Business Administration. So definitely glad to have you both here today, and thank you guys for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having us. It's an honor.
Awesome. So I ask this of all of our guests, and every time someone comes on, I want to know, so how did you guys get into this deal? How did y'all get into the field of behavioral healthcare?
So I'll start with mine. It's actually kind of funny. I was asking someone if I could go pick apples in Walpole, Maine, because I was a stay-at-home mom. And that's where I met Tim Chaney. And Tim Chaney brought me into this field, which is incredibly important to me. So, but that's actually how I got involved in it.
So just kind of a chance meeting, huh?
It was a chance meeting, yes.
It's funny whenever I talk to people how often that happens. It's not like we set out, when we're kids, I think, astronaut, fireman, I know behavioral healthcare. Yeah, that'll do it. That's not the thing. How about you? What about you?
Yeah, so about a decade ago, I found myself in having the opportunity to make a career change and had moved to Southern California, had a number of friends and family be affected by substance use disorder, and really felt like I wanted to do something on my next journey that was going to help people. And so I started off doing marketing and outreach for, at that time, was a sober living company that worked with young adults that had kind of failed out of college, and really worked with them to get them back enrolled into school and supported them through that transition process. So I was pretty excited at that point to get in and make a difference, and then somehow ended up in the lab business for the last decade, where I was lucky enough to meet Megan.
Right on. So, and I know, Megan, you already talked about, you know, one of your mentors, but like, what impact did that relationship have on you and your professional career? And then Nikki, what about you? Who are some of your mentors? So we'll start with Megan.
Yeah, so I've been fortunate enough to meet a lot of people who have fostered and supported me throughout my career. But Tim specifically changed my whole world. How he brought me into substance use disorder and just the advocacy part, really fostering my passion to help people, fostering my knowledge, and just the devastating effect that this disease has had on everyone, communities around. My other mentor is Jay Johnson, and he helped me to really understand mergers and acquisitions, financial projections, all of more of the business side of it. But between those two, it has been, I've been really, really fortunate.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense. One thing that I see with professionals in the field of behavioral healthcare is they come in a lot of times with experience and then get the education, but just the clinical education, and to have the business background and the business education, I think is tremendously important, right?
Yep.
All right, what about you, Nikki?
I mean, that's a tough one. There's so many brilliant, spirited people that I've met, and I consider my career really being in this space at this point, even though I had other jobs prior to it. From a professional standpoint, I would say probably my old bosses back at a previous company were really helpful on the business development side. And I think now I look at a mentor in more than just a business or career side. I look at, you know, what are their ethics, what are their values, you know, how are they as a contributing member of their family, and, you know, their working level, how dedicated they are in their profession. And I'd say now it's Dr. Carrero, who has really been involved in Ray since the beginning, 2014. So she's like a overall life mentor, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And having met her, I agree 100%. Like, she's just an amazing contributor to our field. Absolutely. So before we get into Ray, because I want to talk about that, it's exciting to me. And part of what we try to do on the show is kind of talk about new and emerging therapies, modalities, topics. And so I'm really excited about this. But before we get into Ray, how did you two guys meet?
Okay, so I'll take that. Megan and I worked together about 9 years ago. I ran the Western US and she ran the Northeast. And, you know, even though we're on opposite sides of the country, we had very, very similar philosophies and values. And I think us actually connecting was something bigger than us. We were connected for a reason. And, you know, 9 years later, we're like family. So.
Right on. That's awesome. I love to hear it. So, okay. So now, now that we got that straightened out, I want to dig into a little bit of what Ray is. So Megan, tell me, like, what exactly is Ray?
Yeah. So essentially what Ray is we have the capability to detect and differentiate stress, emotional stress versus craving detection. This is based upon a smartwatch that is device agnostic. So we want to be able to put it on anyone's smartwatch, but this buzzes when I have stress, which it just did about 5 minutes ago. And essentially my app's going to pop up and it's going to ask me if I need help, which connects me to my community. So the provider puts in information of who those support people are. And then I'm going to answer questions, just namely stating I have stress. What is it to me right now? It's anxiety. So then it walks me through dialect behavioral therapy questions, really quick to subjectively respond and de-escalate, and captures my geographical location. So that connects that to the provider in real time. So our hope with Ray is to do just-in-time interventions and behavior modification and mindful awareness or quantifiable self for the individual who's using it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And how, I mean, how important, especially right now, whenever we're all living in such a unique environment with COVID and not being able to get to the normal services, right?
It's huge. Yeah. So we're working in substance use disorder, but I wear my device on a daily basis, and being mindful of my stress and knowing when I need to get up and walk and take time for myself is huge. Connection, to utilizing technology to connect people, not to take away from that real life connection and that real life clinical and professional support, but as an ancillary add-on to give quantitative data back to the provider, and more importantly, which I feel it's really valuable to me, you know. Our algorithm is so sensitive that a lot of the times, you know, what you're feeling in your mind and what you're feeling in your body happens before you can even process it. So having that alert before you escalate so that you can de-escalate and go back to your coping mechanisms, tools, take a breather, is incredibly valuable.
So what was the kind of the onus or the reason why you guys came up with this and started down this road?
It's simple. We literally just wanted to reduce suffering with people who are afflicted with substance use disorder. That's really our number one goal. And we thought that there was a better way utilizing technology. We didn't understand, you know, if stress is one of the leading precursors of relapse, to us, it's like asking a diabetic, could you please tell me what your blood sugar levels are today? So we really started to dive in thinking that, you know, we could build this and we could create this.
Right on. Yeah, I do think it's interesting that in our field, how we're just like trying to edge technology in. There's been such a resistance to it over the years. Like what did you guys see whenever y'all started to introduce or even conceptualize this technology? What was your response from the community?
So the community support has been huge, really, really positive. I think, you know, one of the issues with technology and behavioral health care is understanding how clinicians need to see the data and how they use the data. Clinicians are really overworked in this space. And so we, you know, one of the things we're really trying to do that we feel like is a solution is making sure that they have the right information right at their fingertips in a system that they're already utilizing. So, but overall, it has been incredibly positive feedback from everyone from the NIH all the way to treatment facility owners and patients.
Right on. What about you, Nikki? What's been your response in bringing it to market and being out there and talking about the technology?
Well, I think we're just getting to the point where we're even talking about it. I think, you know, over the last 30 days, it's been a long process to get the data to work on a consumer grade wearable. When we started this, the closest thing we could use was a device that was $1,500, and we just knew that wasn't going to work. So we're still in the process of just going to market now. We're finishing up our phase 1 clinical study, about to start a huge one in the beginning of the year. But ultimately, the feedback from the patients that when I'm reading the exit interviews is overwhelmingly positive, and that minute where the craving's happening or the stress is happening, just the vibration, the popping up on the app, that pause of if it's 5 seconds just to reroute the brain and just really stop, has been really helpful to them. So that's what we're trying to do, is empower the patient. They're the quarterback in this whole process, and if we can help them, everything's going to be better.
Right on. Excellent. What in doing this, what would you say has been your biggest hurdles or challenges, and how did you guys walk through those?
Ed, you want to take that one?
Sure. Yeah. So some of our biggest challenges really have been, like Nikki said, we started off with a medical grade device, and it was at $1,500 per device, which we knew we couldn't scale. So waiting for technology to catch up to our algorithm and our IP has been a challenge. And then especially in the substance use disorder space, it's very fragmented so each facility has a different process or different outcomes of what they're looking for. So it would be obviously easier if there was, it was streamlined all across, but it's not. So trying to tailor too.
Okay. Yeah, I see that not just in thinking about technology and wearables, but in modalities as well.
Yeah.
It's so broad, right?
Yep.
But what I want to ask you, and this may be something to have a dialogue about, is that why do you think that we spend so much time focusing on just the acute phase and very little time working on the chronic phase or the whole problem after the person gets done with the acute treatment? What are your thoughts on that?
It's a great question.
I can take that one. I really don't have 100% answer as to why we look at, recovery in a 90 to 120 day process. Like to me, it's mind blowing. Like if you look at every other chronic disease, from diabetes to, I know Ben makes the analogy to like cancer. When you've been in remission, they look at it as a 5-year process. I really don't know why that industry benchmarks there, other than you look at the relapse rates and they're highest at 30, 60, 90 days. But, personally, I had a family member go through this process, and at day 21, he got discharged from an inpatient treatment program. And he called when he left and he said, "I'm so scared to go home. I feel safe here, but I do not feel ready." And then when they go home, they're like, "Okay, well, find your sponsor, find your IOP." There's a huge disconnect across the industry that needs to change, so that that patient has way more support through that whole first year process and then some. So I think that's where we kind of fit in as a resource tool for patients and centers that are really looking to help manage that patient and transition them into their home life and back into their norm.
Awesome. So what have been some of the success stories in that, like that you've seen with patients that are using the technology?
Megan, you want to take that one, or you want me to?
Sure, I'll take it. So what we've seen with success with patients utilizing the technology is where, one of them is that they feel safe utilizing it. It's technology is bridging the gap so that they're connected, that they feel more aware. They didn't realize what some of their triggers were. It's been overwhelmingly positive feedback, and then critical feedback too on usability. So, I wish that we have a lot of like feedback saying, can we integrate, this aspect to it, or gamification and, those other aspects that we're building out. So, but patients really like utilizing it so far. So
yeah, one of the other exit interviews I just read yesterday, that one of the patients said that it's one less thing for them having to worry about, is really understanding when they're having stress or craving, because just really being aware of them and trying to understand what's happening to them, it's like one less thing that they have to worry about. That's being taken care of for them.
Yeah, I never thought about the fact that it's almost a safety valve, or it's a safe place, right, for them to go and for information. They are, like, when a person gets out and actually has to use the tools that they've learned in treatment, it's a very vulnerable place,
Yeah.
So,
and the idea is to really connect them with a peer support network too. So I think, like, if you really look at what's successful in recovery, it's finding a good sponsor, it's finding, that support person who knows you on a daily level and is there whenever you need them.
excellent. So what's next on the horizon for this? Like, what do you guys see coming up, and what's getting you guys fired up about the next year or so?
Yeah, launching for sure. So getting this out, and working with some pretty incredible treatment centers to do a beta launch, and expanding our research. So, we want to bring this into other applications as well, because we feel like it's very useful information and usable technology that's cost effective.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on that. I think COVID's been an awful thing that's happened to this whole country, but it's really pushed the entire medical community to look at other better technology and other options. So, I mean, everybody is stressed. It's not just people that have mental health issues so I think that changing the stigma and the timing of all of this for us to go out and really try to really help people, like everybody gets it now. It's interesting.
So, and I've seen this kind of like you talked about, where everybody's working on things right now that we've all been put in this amazing situation. We're all like either scrambling or doing new things. What are some other things that you guys have seen out there that that are maybe either in the technology in treatment role or other things that you've seen that are kind of like, wow, that's pretty cool?
There's a lot out there that is really cool that, my brain's going a little blank on some of the stuff. I think that there's a shift happening that's really cool. I think that more and more people are starting to look at, the populations and the communities and how do we actually help people who aren't in treatment. That is really cool. I think that the dynamics after doing 100 interviews with various programs, we're starting to at least see trends of shifts in treatment philosophies. We're looking at patients more and more as consumers who are holistic and trying to, treat them from a holistic self, which is really cool.
But Glenn, to piggyback on that, I don't think there's enough new technologies out there. I mean, if you look at every other space of healthcare, there's a lot more tools than we have access to. So, we just want to be one of the many solutions that come into this space.
Yeah, I had this conversation with Dr. Andrew Krieger a while back, and we were like, how come Facebook analytics does a better job of kind of getting my profile than a behavioral healthcare provider that is tagged with my behavioral well-being, right? Isn't that amazing?
It is.
It is amazing. And I think it has a lot to do with regulation. Thankfully, you want to make sure that whatever is out there is usable, that there's efficacy there and that it's safe. And that takes time, but technology itself goes so fast. So pretty much when it's released, it's already outdated. But
Absolutely. So last question I'll ask on Ray and what you guys are doing is, where do you see this thing, let's say in 5 years? Like what would your hope be for this technology? And we also don't want to just say like one technology, for technology in general. Where would you like to see this going?
So I would like to see this going back to the information going back to research so that we can better understand communities and this disease itself and how to treat it, how to prevent it. I would also like to see this on as many people with different afflictions as possible, because I think it's incredible technology to quantitate how someone is feeling in behavioral health, which is huge. So it gives the clinicians more information on how to better provide treatment.
Yeah, and I think in 5 years from now, I think you'll be able to predict when someone's going to relapse. You'll be able to know, all right, this is my guess, but they're going to know, like, if they're an alcoholic, when they're using. I think where we end up being able to Megan's point of looking at overall data trends, all of it is going to be so much more of a clearer picture for everybody.
Yeah, because we found that the actual use is the very end of the relapse chain, right? I mean, it starts so much further up before the use takes place. And if we can have an intervention before it gets to that point, it's definitely much more beneficial to the patient, and then also to I just think of the families as well,
Yep. And the communities. Intrinsic motivation. So how do we actually build and foster intrinsic motivation? That's the other key part.
And so something I know that you guys are doing as y'all are building partnerships and working relationships with many different facilities and people across the country. What's the best way to get in touch with you if there's a facility or a doctor or another provider out there that wants to have a conversation and talk about what you guys are doing?
So our website's out there, www.rayhealth, and that's RAE health.com. Contact information is there, or, our emails, I guess, or phone numbers on Facebook.
Yeah, you can just go to the contact page, put the information in and send us a message and reach out to us. We're definitely looking for more beta partners going into our next clinical trial. And we're really excited to see what we can do.
Yeah, once again, I'm really fired up about it because the more focus that we can have on the part of the continuum of care that takes place after a patient is discharged from either a residential or a partial hospitalization level of care, the more emphasis we can focus on that, I think the better we're caring for our patients, the more support we're giving them. So I'm really excited about that. What I'll do is I'll make sure that in the comments section below the postings that we'll put you guys email in there and website so people can get in touch with you guys. So before we close the show today, I want to ask you guys, is there anything else that you guys would like to share with our audience? Anything that you'd like for them to know before we call it quits for the day?
I can't think of anything. Megan?
I can't think of anything either. I mean, we're definitely open. I think it takes a community. So we want to collaborate and work with as many people to help solve this problem. And we're really grateful to you for allowing us, inviting us on and talking to us. As always, thank you so much.
Thanks, Glenn.
Yeah, absolutely. Really glad to have you guys here. Once again, if you're out there and you're watching and you're interested in developing a technological or wearable or something in this space, feel free to reach out. That's one of the reasons why we provide this platform is to connect our community and bring us closer together to where we can all meet. We're all working in the same direction, right?
Yeah.
And so let's all work together, reach out to these two leaders in our field and ask questions. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and close the show today. Don't forget that we're going to put all of the contact information in the comments below. If you have a question, please put it there. We'll try to continue this conversation as it goes on. I'm really excited to have next week's guest is going to be Dan Caldwell from Caldwell Group in Houston. So excited to have him on. We're going to get into some of the nitty gritty about working with behavioral healthcare issues. So very excited about that. Also, don't forget to go to perspectives@timeforchange.com if you still need to get any of your CEs or CMEs. Those are still available there. And with that, we'll go ahead and close the show. Thank you guys so much for being here. And remember, it's just a matter of perspective.
Thank you.